Before you date someone, you can learn almost everything about them in minutes. Their name, their hometown, their relatives. Maybe even their entire family tree. Now remove all of it. No surnames, no records, no photographs, no DNA test. No village with thousands of strangers. You lived 34,000 years ago, in a camp small enough to recognize every voice in the dark. And now you must choose a partner. The safest person is someone familiar. But the most familiar person may also be the most dangerous choice. So how did prehistoric humans avoid having children with close relatives when nobody could prove who was related to whom? The obvious answer is that they often failed. Ancient DNA suggests something far more surprising. Start with the camp around you. These are the people who share your fire, food, tools, shelter, and stories. You watched many of them grow up. You probably know who their mothers are. Older people may remember births, partnerships, deaths, and visitors from years earlier. That memory could protect the group. But memory is not a perfect family tree. People die, children move, visitors arrive, relationships change. A child may know a cousin as a friend without understanding the connection. After only a few generations, one forgotten branch could bring two close relatives together. Perhaps people simply felt no attraction toward those raised beside them. That is possible. Researchers have long discussed the idea that close childhood familiarity can reduce later sexual attraction. But psychology alone cannot explain the ancient genetic pattern, and it certainly cannot tell us what every prehistoric community believed. Perhaps strict taboos solved the problem. A group might have rules about whom you could marry, which relatives were forbidden, or which people had to leave. Such rules exist in many later societies. But Stone Age rules were not written down. Archaeology cannot recover a conversation beside a fire and confidently label it a marriage law. So we need evidence that survived when the rules did not. That evidence is inside the dead. At Sunghir, in what is now Western Russia, archaeologists found some of the most extraordinary burials of the Upper Paleolithic. Two children were placed head-to-head in the same grave. Their bodies were surrounded by elaborate objects and thousands of carefully made ivory beads. They looked like they should belong to one close family. In 2017, Martin Sikora and an international research team sequenced DNA from 4 individuals associated with the site. The result broke the obvious story. The buried individuals were not close relatives. Even the 2 children placed together were, at most, only distantly related. Yet their genomes came from a population with a small effective size and showed no sign that their parents had been close kin. Think about that contradiction. The community was small. The gene pool was not collapsing. How? One solution is movement. Not random wandering, but repeated connection between camps. People could visit, exchange knowledge, join another group, return years later, or form partnerships beyond the faces around their own fire. The camp was small, the social world was not. That idea is supported by a much larger genetic study published in Nature Communications in 2021. Harold Ringbauer and his colleagues examined DNA from 785 ancient people who lived across the last 45,000 years. They searched for long stretches of matching DNA inherited from both parents, the genetic fingerprints left when parents are close relatives. Across most ancient populations, first cousin or closer unions were uncommon. This does not mean incest never happened. It did. It means tiny prehistoric communities were not automatically trapped inside tiny mating pools. They had ways out. And movement may have mattered, even among other human groups. A 2022 Nature study, led by Lorit Skov, analyzed 13 Neanderthals from caves in southern Siberia. The pattern of mitochondrial and Y chromosome diversity was most consistent with women moving between small communities. That was one isolated Neanderthal population, not a universal rule. But it reveals the same basic possibility. A person leaving one group could connect two entire worlds. Now the problem changes. The stranger outside the fire is dangerous because you do not know their intentions. But refusing every stranger creates another danger: isolation. This is the twist hidden inside prehistoric survival. The greatest threat was not always someone entering your group. Sometimes it was nobody entering at all. A wider network did more than provide possible partners. It could bring information, materials, allies, and somewhere to go when food disappeared locally. The very relationship that felt uncertain could keep a small community from becoming genetically and socially trapped. Of course, DNA cannot tell us exactly how one couple met. It cannot prove that everyone understood heredity. It cannot recover the songs, ceremonies, kinship words, promises, or arguments that organize these connections. The evidence gives us the outcome, not the complete rulebook. Prehistoric humans probably combined several imperfect systems: memory, childhood familiarity, social rules, movement, seasonal meetings, and relationships between groups. No single method needed to work perfectly. The network only needed to keep opening. Today we treat strangers as optional. Our food, information, entertainment, and even romance can arrive through a screen while the door stays closed. But for much of human history, a group that trusted only itself could slowly become more vulnerable. The people beyond the fire were not merely outsiders. They were possible family, future allies, and proof that your small world was connected to a larger one. So which would you have chosen 34,000 years ago? The familiar person who felt safe but might share too much of your blood? Or the stranger whose face you could not yet trust, but whose arrival might protect the future of your entire group? Write your choice in the comments. Because the most dangerous person in prehistory may not have been the stranger. It may have been the last familiar face left.